take a look at this texture. Can you see it? Okay. Now, according to the texture manual, just joking, this would be considered, I want to say, 4C. And that's great when you're utilizing those numbers and those letters to figure out what products to use and maybe figure out what different ways you can manage moisture or manipulation. But I'll just give you some old school one-on-one when it comes to 4C hair. See, most people think this hair is going to be hard, going to be coarse, going to be strong, and most times you're sadly mistaken because this is one of the most fragile hair textures. First and foremost, usually the kinkier the hair is, the finer the hair is. Finer hair that's kinky does not grow down, it grows out, it's really lightweight. It's also very tricky to manipulate without breakage because every bend in the zigzag or curl in this texture hair, this fine 4C cotton-like hair, is going to be a weaker point. Now, for my ladies that are wearing 4C and they're wearing puffs and natural styles or twist outs and they're wondering why they're seeing these little ringlets or these little coils on their bathroom sinks, it's because, yes, I hate to inform you this, but it's probably breakage. Now, I'm gonna say, although this hair can be pretty tricky to manipulate and it can be pretty tricky when it comes to length retention, there are a few things that you could know that'll get you closer to your goals. One is, do not try to manipulate 4C hair in its dry natural state. That's when you're gonna get the most breakage. That's when you're gonna do the most damage. So before manipulating this hair from one style to the next or from being shrunken up to stretched out, you always want to apply some moisture to the hair. Water-based preferably, because that is going to soften it up in its dry state and make it more pliable. Therefore, when you go to stretch it out, you're not gonna have as much breakage. Another thing is you always wanna make sure that the ends of this particular hair texture is being moisturized. They are being moisturized. The ends receive so little moisture but are the most exposed to the elements. And that's because the natural sebum that is created at the scalp does not have the ability to free flow down the hair shaft because of the texture. It's too coily, it's fluffy, and that natural oil that our bodies produce to moisturize our skin and our hair does not make it down to the end of the hair. It does not make it down to the ends. So we've got to make sure that we are hydrating and moisturizing the hair before manipulating it from one style to the next or before stretching it out. And we have got to make sure that the ends stay moisturized at all times, even if you're wearing it natural, because the ends of your hair are the oldest part of your hair. So they've gotten the most exposure to sunlight, the most exposure to the outdoor elements. They've been around the longest, they've been washed the longest, and we gotta make sure that we pack that moisture back into those ends in order to keep the breakage from happening, but also in order to retain the length, which is why protective styles for 4C hair are very, very, very effective in length retention goals. And I mean long-term protective styles. Protective styles that last a few days, they're all right. But the more you manipulate this hair, the more you're going to expose it to damage and the more you're going to have it susceptible to breakage. So longer-term protective styles are going to be your best bet in retaining length. Sew-ins, braids, flat twist outs, stuff that can last you longer than a week. That's what you want to stick to if you got length retention goals for this particular hair texture. But I just wanted to dispel a lot of the myths and rumors about 4C hair. It is not the strongest. It is typically and usually not very coarse in texture. It is kinky and it is dry, but it is very soft and it is very fragile. So you gotta keep that in mind when you are manipulating your 4C hair, or if you're a stylist and you're manipulating your client's 4C hair. It's better to take it in smaller sections. It's better to manipulate the hair while it is damp and has some moisturizer on it. Always, always, always use a detangler brush or a wide tooth comb, or better yet, your hands first to manipulate some of those tangles out of the hair before trying to full on stretch it out or manipulate it into another style. These are going to be lifesavers and game changers for your 4C hair. I'm telling you, you're going to want to manipulate this hair as less as possible, but you're going to also want to pack in the moisture as often as possible. And in between protective styles, you really, really, really got to lock in on giving your hair a nice deep conditioning, hydrating treatment. And just before protective styling, I don't care what your braider's telling you about not putting anything in the hair. That's fine. If they don't want you to put it in there, you make sure that they put it in there. because the moisture has got to be packed into this hair before going into a protective style. Remember, if you're wearing something long-term like braids or weaves or flat twists, any of those protective styles that are going to put the hair in a state where you're not going to be touching on it as frequently, it also means you're not going to be able to apply moisture as often. So you're going to want to pack in the moisturizing products prior to getting that style. You're also going to want to be careful manipulating it out of that style, because remember, the hair gets back dry, it's less pliable. So when you start to take the braids out, or you start to take the weave down and you take the braids out from the weave, you want to do the same thing when you're changing styles. When you're doing those takedowns, you want to apply that moisture and you want to get the hair nice, soft, and pliable before you start to manipulate it out of braids and out of a weave or out of the twist, or you're going to cause breakage and you're not going to see good length retention. You're not, trust me. You're going to have hair that's all different sorts of lengths. You're going to have to trim way too frequently to keep the hair looking healthy at the ends. If you just do these small things, I'm telling you, you're going to be way better off just taking care of your hair in its natural state. And I want to add this. Do not be surprised if your hair likes to be straight better than it likes to be in its natural state. I'm going to say that again. Do not be surprised if you notice your hair is better off stretched out and straight than in its natural state. I'm going to tell you this. When hair has been stretched out, it's easier to manipulate. You have less tangling. You can actually retain a little bit more of the moisture. You can apply products a little bit more evenly. Your hair may enjoy being stretched out. Doesn't mean that you don't like your texture. Doesn't mean that you can't manage your texture. It just means that it's easier for you to maintain the health of your hair in its stretched out state. And people should not be bullying you for that. That is a preference. That is also a lifestyle preference. And I, as a stylist, have noticed that a lot of my 4C clients do really well when their hair is in a stretched state versus them trying to manipulate it in its natural state day to day. Okay? I'm not gonna wear you out with a whole lot more words. I'm gonna let you check this blowout out. I'm just gonna be blowing out my 4C client, prepping her up for a sew-in styling service. And I just wanted you to watch and check out how this process goes and look at how much shrinkage versus stretch that she has. It is amazing. She's amazing. She takes really, really good care of her hair. She's growing it out from a short cut and things are looking really good. So just check it out. Now, as you can see, I've been taking my client's hair in small sections in order to stretch it out. I'm doing that so that I can maintain a nice grip on the hair with control without having to rip through, without a whole lot of tangles to work through. I'm using smaller sections with the detangler brush. That is the Felicia Leatherwood detangling brush, one of the best detanglers I have. If you can get that, order that now. For all my naturals and my natural stylists, order that brush. That brush is the truth. Anyway, I'm taking her hair and I am stretching it with my hands so that I can gently stretch it as I blow the hair out. And it doesn't have to be super silky for this blowout because once again, she's going to be going up into a protective style. She's going to be braided down for a sew-in. But as you can see, I am getting through this hair with little to no friction. And there's barely any hair in that detangling brush. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to handle 4C hair, dispelling some of those myths and rumors. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you later.